I like talking about negotiations with him because he's got a lot of great ones. So I'll just tell one more and probably it'll incite something in your mind to think about. But I had one recently. I ordered a bunch of, this is silly, but you maybe you'll appreciate it. So I bought a parking garage recently. So imagine like a normal commercial parking garage where you go up, and the floors are level, but then you go up another floor and it's level. You go up another floor and it's level. Right. So the floor is level. But back in the 80s in a particular spot, a guy bought like 12 parking spots. I don't think you'd do this today. He bought like 12 parking spots in a building, and the HOA let him build a wall around this and have like a private parking garage inside the parking garage.
I've never seen that before.
Yes, yeah. There's like 2,500 square feet. There's a bathroom. They had a bar and a bathroom. And so anyway, I bought this parking garage. Humorous negotiation, but maybe that's a separate story maybe. Rich Franklin was with me, just coincidentally, he was my coach that week when I had that, so Rich Franklin was there for that negotiation. I'll talk about it in a second. That's a good one too. But the story I was getting to, so I need some mirrors for my parking garage because it's only 2,500 feet, so I need a whole wall of mirrors so it looks twice the size that it is. And I remodeled it to look like a house inside, and you were just in it the other day. It looks like a beautiful home inside. There's crystal chandeliers, it looks beautiful now. So I can go park the Rolls Royce and the Maybach and the other cars.
Gotta have that, man. I'm telling you.
When you click the garage button for the door to open, there's a crystal chandelier that turns on, not a normal garage door opener, a crystal chandelier turns on to drive under.
See, this is an example of a rich dude. Okay.
So, the mirrors, I get an estimate for the mirrors, which is not a lot of money. They're asking like, I think it should be like $6,500. It's just like a wall of mirrors and a little bit of glass for a bathroom. There's no crazy custom glass. There's nothing wild. It's just, high quality mirrors. And I think, in my head, I'm like, $6,500. And a guy that's helping me manage some of the construction said, you got a good glass guy you want to talk to? And he's like, yeah, I'll ask my buddy, blah, blah, blah. Comes back at almost 10,000. And I was like, so I called another company that I've done, 10 projects with. And their front end staff is a little bit of a pain in the ass, but they do really good work at the end. And I spent, $120,000, $130,000 with them maybe on other stuff, which is a lot of years. So I asked them, say, hey, can you come out and do, this is a good part too. I said, hey, can you come, the guy hasn't heard from me for a year and a half. I said, hey, could you, Matt, could you come look at this thing for me and give me an estimate? And he's like, well, when would you like me to come there? I said, tomorrow at noon would be great. Could you come tomorrow at noon? He's like, well, I got this other thing. It's in the suburbs. I don't know. I said, I got an idea. I said, you ready, Matt? And he said, well, what are you thinking? I said, my idea is them and come look at my project instead, because it's a done deal. You just got to show up and we'll talk about the project and we'll get it done together. He's like, give me 2 minutes. So my response, my answer is literally, them and make me a priority. He's like, give me 2 minutes. And he calls me back in less than that. He's like, I'll be there at noon tomorrow. Exact time that I wanted. He said, I'll be there. It's like, okay, thanks. So he comes, They asked me for something like $6,800. In my head, I was like, just my ballpark, I'm like 65. He sends me a thing, 68. I don't negotiate the money.
No, I wouldn't either. That's what you wanted. Yeah.
But what I tell him, I said, Matt, I want to give you exactly what you asked for, no problem. But when we set a schedule, I really need it done on that schedule. We can't have delays. It's going to be 3-4 weeks before we do shit here.
So that's the real negotiation, right? It's not always about money.
So I don't want to negotiate the price. I'm going to give you exactly what you asked. I think that's reasonable. It's a little more than I thought, which is true. It's a little more than I thought, but I think it's reasonable. But what is important to me, when we set a schedule, which I won't be able to do for a couple weeks, but when we set that schedule, I need the guys to be on time and get things done on that schedule so everything else can run smooth in my project. Like, will you promise me that? And he's like, yeah, we did a lot of things together, blah, blah, blah. So all right, done deal.
Good deal.
So
yeah.
I'll send you the money. Then later I just decided to expand the mirrors, and there's another 3,000 something. So it turned into 10 grand anyway, but I added more stuff. And same thing, so give you exactly what you want, make sure it happens on time. So, yep. Okay, so when you schedule it, install is supposed to happen on a particular Monday and Tuesday. And they did a good chunk of it. They did 60% by Tuesday. And like, we got to come back Thursday and this and this and this and that. I'm like, it's going to be done Thursday, yeah? Okay. On Thursday, the guy messes up. There's 20 mirrors, 19 of them are fine. One of them, he's off by 3/16 of an inch on one of my outlets, like below the outlet cover. He's really off 3/8 or 5/8 of an inch, but 3/16 is visible under where the plate cover is going to be. And his answer, I said, what are we doing about this? And he's like, well, I can get you a bigger plate cover.
That's what I would have said too.
I said, I got 10 bathrooms here. There's 10 bathrooms. And every plate cover in 10 bathrooms is the same size. And this one's going to be the size. I don't need a bigger plate cover. I need a mirror that's cut correctly. When I say, what are we doing? What I really mean to say is, can you get this shit done today? Like, call today and get it, cut me a new mirror. Now it's already 1:30. It's going to be hard for them to do that. And he's like, oh, I'm going to have to call Tim and blah, blah, blah. What? Tim's like the installation manager guy, like the top installer guy. And Tim's full of shit and likes to lie a lot. So he'll mess something up. He does good work, but when he messes something up, he's gonna not take the blame. He's gonna say, oh, it wasn't ready to measure, or this thing, or something is your fault, not his fault. He couldn't do it because it was your fault or your contractor's fault or some shit. And he does that repetitively. And he already did it once on this project. So Tim's response is, well, it'll have to be Monday. I'm busy tomorrow, it'll have to be Monday. And I said, Tim, we're going to get it done tomorrow. This is supposed to be Tuesday. And now it's supposed to be done Tuesday. Today is Thursday, it should be done already. Tomorrow morning, okay, but we need it done tomorrow morning. We're not talking about Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. We need it done tomorrow morning. And he's like, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I said, no problem, Tim. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to the owner, and he's going to talk to you, and we're going to get it done tomorrow. So then I, boom, boom, boom. I talked to the sales rep. We talked to the owner. He said it'll be done tomorrow. Call Tim and schedule it. I called Tim back. Oh, and they told me, by the way, when I talked to them again, they said, well, Tim said that the backsplash wasn't there, that the backsplash wasn't in place, blah, 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 blah. I said, the backsplash has been there for a week.
Yeah,
the backsplash has been there. I said, Tim lies to you guys. He does a good job, but he lies his ass off to you people all the time. You may or may not know that, but if you haven't paid attention, Tim lies his ass off all the time. Does a good job at the end, but you should be aware of that. So I get back on the phone with Tim. I don't outsource this to anybody else. I got to make this phone call. So, and I have my, it's not even a contractor. It's a guy that helps me with, he manages most of the shit. I'm the real contractor at the end, But I say, hey, Tim, tomorrow, so what time tomorrow? So how early? He's like, oh, no promises, but maybe I could be there between 10 and 1. I said, that. There's a lot of that in my story. I said, that. There are promises. A promise is going to be done tomorrow morning. I expect it to be done tomorrow morning. By the way, Tim, I know you lie to your boss a lot, and you lie to your colleagues. And I don't mind if you lie to your boss and your colleagues.
I don't think that's on my sheet.
But when you lie to your boss and colleagues in the future, I'd like you to keep my name out of your stories. I'd like you to not say that something wasn't done on my job site. When last week when you lied and said the baseboard wasn't right, so you couldn't measure the one wall of mirrors, like the baseboard's been there. The baseboard's been there. That was 100% complete and ready for you to measure. And this week when you decided to lie about the backsplash not being there, blah, 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 I said, Tim, when you lie and you involve my name in it, people think I'm not reliable. Like everything that I do is on point. Everything that I do is on schedule. Everybody here knows me, that they know that things run on schedule. So when you tell a lie because you're not on schedule, by the way, the schedule is you were supposed to be done Tuesday, and now it's Thursday, and now it's Friday. So just don't involve my name in your lies. And he's like, I'll see you tomorrow by 10 a.m. You don't even deny being a liar.
I'm feeling kind of bad for Tim,
He
by
made
the way.
zero effort.
Yeah.
The guy's like 50 years old. And he's a big guy too. But he don't even defend himself or have any comment about me calling him liar numerous times, because he is. I'll be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay, Tim, that's great. So think about some of those things that when I don't want to negotiate the price. I don't need the thing for 6,500, or I don't need to be. They gave me a good price. They gave me a price that they would give a contractor, not a normal person price. And I'm like, all right, but you promised me the shit will be installed on time, right? And then when something comes up, then there's recourse that you can go back and.
It's not always about the money, though. You know,
I love it. I think it's the biggest hole in negotiation. So many people are fixated on money.
100%.
All the time, I give them the money they ask for. I say, hey, I'll give you exactly what you're asking for, but would you mind doing these 1 or 2 extra things?
Right. That's why, by the way, you never be first to split the difference. Always let them do it, because then you can split the difference. Right? He says 1,000, and I say 2,000. He says, let's split the difference, and it's 1,500. And I'll say, I'll tell you what, I'll do it, but let's split it out. Let's do 1,750. Right? So that's just a real basic thing that I've learned, is never be the guy to offer that. Always be the second, and the guy receiving it. And it's not always about the money. Like a lot of times, like more than not, it's not about the money. Depends on who you're dealing with too. Obviously, when you're buying a car, it's all about the money to them, because that's how they live. So, but let me tell you one thing you don't do when you negotiate. I've learned this from these guys that fight for us. Never negotiate with yourself, because you will always lose. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I'm talking to him about a month ago about some stuff we're doing with athletes. And I call him and I said, hey, I can get that guy there at 10 o'clock. He says, no, I have an appointment to work out. A lot of people in my position would be like, what the is he talking about? Right? Why? This workout is not as important as what we're trying to do here. But I said to myself, good for him. You cannot negotiate shit like that with yourself. You'll always lose. If I say to myself, I can work out tomorrow, I can do that tomorrow, I will always do it tomorrow. So I don't give myself I drove 9 hours yesterday to get here from California. I worked out today, and I said to myself, if I don't work out, I can't go do this tonight. That's how bad I'm going to feel.
I'm glad you worked out.
Yeah, I worked out. I feel great, but I forget about that before I work out. I forget about how great I'm going to feel afterwards, And you watch these fighters train. I mean, it's 3 times a day for months, cutting weight. There's no negotiation. These guys come in. I never see them miss. I never see them make excuses. These guys never say, I would have beat that guy, but my knee hurt. I never hear that shit.
The champions.
Yeah.
I hear plenty of excuses from some of the other ones.
Well, of course, because there's always that level of people that you're dealing with. But one of the rules I have in my work, in my life, is that I'm not going to negotiate things with myself, because I know I'll lose. So I make standards, and I make standards for my staff, and I don't negotiate those. There are things they can do, and there are things they can't do, and they're very clear on it. And if you're going to lead, I remember I had a SEAL. There was a SEAL that used to executive protect some of the executives that owned us before, and he told me a couple things that were interesting. One thing he said is that when he was in the SEALs, some guy asked the lieutenant, I guess the lieutenant's who runs the squad, why do you make us make our beds? Which I do every morning, by the way. And he said, because if you can't do the simple shit, how the f*** are you ever going to do the complex stuff? So that's how I look at life. Like the simple stuff I just have to do. The other thing he said is that when you go into a place, there's no assuming command. You take command. Like, I had a guy offer me a job that was replacing somebody, and he said, well, you're going to assume his role. I'm like, I don't want to do that. You fired him. I don't want to assume his role. He obviously wasn't doing it right. I'll do it my way, So when you are in a situation where you're leading people, A, you got to lead by example. B, you got to do exactly what you're telling them to do. You have to do yourself. I get into work every morning at 6 a.m. I beat all my staff there. every day. And I don't know why I do it. I think I do it to show them that I'm 68 and I can still outwork you. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I started selling appliances. That's how I got my start. And had some stuff happen in my family. My father was killed. I had to get out there and work. I started selling appliances. A guy from a real estate company came in and said, "You're a good salesman. Why don't you sell real estate?" He said, "I'll hire you. Go get your license." Got my license. Was out there all the time in the sales office. His dad had retired. He was 80. The guy that started this huge corporation, he had built 12,000 houses. And he'd come in and say, "Call your wife and tell her you're going to be late." And he'd sit there and train me for an hour on how to sell. I thought I knew how to sell, because when you're selling appliances and there's 10 stores on the street that sell the same shit, you got to be able to. It's ABC, all about closing, right? So he'd just talk to me about buying signals, and when people are looking at homes, what's the buying signal? How to get them to sit down? How to get them, to agree to tell you about their finances so you can talk to them about financing and all that. And I started doing really well, and I ended up being the top guy we had a contest one month. I think we sold 28 homes, and there were 3 of us in the office, and I sold 20 of them. The other 2 split, 4 apiece. After about 6 months, I was flying high. I was selling houses, and he came in and he brought me this placard that he had made, because he would stand in the office and listen to me, which made me really nervous. But he would sit there and listen to me pitching people. And he put on the back of it, I may have even told him this last time, YTTM. And I looked at him, I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "You talk too much." He says, "You're selling houses and buying them back, and you don't even know it." He said, "I watched you buy 3 houses today." Because this guy could close a deal. He was a farmer that turned into a real estate developer, had nothing, was and ended up being a multimillionaire. So I learned that once they say they're going to do it, it's time to shut up. And what in our business, what we would do is just start writing. Now on the phone, I'll say, "Okay, we'll make it happen," with your athlete. The good news for us and my team is that we don't really have to negotiate with the athletes that much. We're negotiating more with sponsors and people that are offering to pay these guys to do stuff. And listen, there's a lot of stuff involved. IPs, their IP rights, if they're doing social media, is it video, is it static? What platforms is it on? We have athletes that have 20 million followers and are getting 50,000 a post. And the good ones, the smart ones, will have somebody that understands that business manage them, and when we ask them to get something up, it goes up that day, and which makes the sponsor happy, it makes us happy. And I got a lot of guys like that. So when I'm picking out who I'm going to give a social media deal to, guess how I decide?
They got to be reliable.
Yeah, it's good. They're not Tim.
Not a pain in the ass. Tim.
They're not Tim. They're not telling me. They're not lying to me. They're not making excuses. And we have athletes that really just don't want to do that stuff, and that's fine. That they can do that. But we got other athletes that know that there's a window for them, and they're going to not take every deal, because that's not good either. But they're going to take deals that make sense for them. And it's like when I was selling real estate, I worked every day. I took Christmas off one year. That was it, because it was like a money tree. And I had never been in a situation where I could make the kind of money I was making, and it all had to just do with me just being out there and talking to people.
What do you imagine I did for Christmas?
This year?
Many years.
Probably the same as last year.
Last year, Henry Hooft was over. I was training with Henry during the week.
Yeah, maybe we told you that, yeah.
Yeah. This year, Glover was over the last 4 days. We flew yesterday, both of us. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, training with Glover. Yep. A year before that, Henry was over. I just talked to Henry yesterday. I said, Glover said, I can only come every other Christmas. My wife would like to see me every other year. I said, I'm sorry. And then I texted Henry and I asked him to come back next Christmas, which is a year from now, but we're planning a year in advance.
Henry was a great coach.
And he's like, yeah, I'll come. So Henry and Glover are my Christmas partners.
So, and guess who gave Glover his first fight?
Oh, yeah?
Yep, me. He lost to a guy named Eric Schwartz. But Chuck came to me that day and said, this guy's good. He's going to be good. He just needs it. So he started training with Chuck.
You know, Glover is so damn good.
Yeah.
When we move around with him, my grappling's pretty damn good. And
He's strong, too,
I can hold
and
my
big.
own pretty good with him. You know, it's the technique. He's not stronger than me, but his technique is so good.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But he's been training a little longer than me, 20 years longer.
Yeah.
We've been working on a lot of striking, and him and Lyoto gave me a belt like halfway to black belt in Kempo Karate. And then we've been working on getting the striking skills up better to be on par with grappling, and we'll get a black belt later. But man, the layers and layers and layers of thought in his head about different areas of striking is like, yeah, I've been working on grappling with him so much, and I know he's really quite excellent at that. And then it's like a whole new perspective of talking about different elements. Which, Glover's, you see the results, but he's really quite brilliant about some of the things that maybe people don't think of him that way, but he really
and
is.
You're seeing firsthand, though, the commitment, right? And the level that these guys are at. It's amazing. These are special human beings. What they do. So I trained for a long time. I have a 3rd degree in Taekwondo and a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I got my brown belt when I was like 60. And I watch what they do, and I can't figure it out. How do they go for 15 or 25 minutes doing this shit? I don't know. The damage they take. I had a fighter. I just did 4 shows in 4 weeks. I did New York, was home for a day, went to China, was there for a week, came back, did a show in Vegas, and then went to Tampa the week before last, and then finished up. And these, when these guys will travel to China, which has gotta suck. Start cutting weight. They'll usually lose 20 to 25 pounds in 3 days, and it's all water. And I see guys that look. I've walked by guys and I don't even recognize them. I mean, these are guys I know really well. That's how they look. That's how depleted they are. And then they put that back on that day. By the time they fight, they're 20, 25 pounds heavier, and they are the best athletes in the entire world. We have NFL guys come in, we have NBA guys come in, we have hockey people come in, and they're trying to see how they train and how they get the cardio they have, because they realize that. And I remember Shaq tried to wrestle Forrest, and Forrest picked him up and threw him down. And I don't know if you've ever seen Shaq, but that dude is big. I stood next to him. I was like, oh my! And he actually picked me up when I was standing next to him, so he's strong too. But
there's a video of Claudio choking him.
Yeah. Shit, I had Jessica Andre beat me up one time in the cafeteria, and she's like 5'1", weighs 125 pounds. I'm doing everything I can to not let her get underhooks. And I'm like, how can this girl be so strong? And I'll tell you, if a dude ever fights her, they're going to be in for a shock. Because this girl is as strong as anybody in this room. Maybe not him, but she is, and she's 5'1". She's the one who picked Rose Namajunas up and dumped her on her head and knocked her out. So I asked Forrest about it, and he said she's a freak. Like it's beyond like human ability to get that strong. So she's just been doing it since she was a kid in Brazil. When they come over here from Brazil, there's not a lot of bullshit. You know that? They either make it or they don't. Jose Aldo told me MMA, soccer, or selling drugs. Those were his 3 choices. And he didn't think he was good enough to do soccer. So he took up MMA. But from the favela, the only choice is to do drugs. And he made millions. And it was a phenomenal fighter, but also a phenomenal human being.
I've only heard good things about him. Never talked to him, and I know his English, but it's not so good. But I've always heard good things about him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
You watch this video all the way through, and that tells me you're dedicated to learning more and earning far above average outcomes in your life. Congratulations for that. But now it's time to take action. If you could have earned those results by yourself, you would have done it already. My head coach has opened up a few spots on his high-demand calendar for an in-person, one-on-one strategy session to help you. On this call, we'll give you the pragmatic advice that you can implement tonight to get laser-focused on the right metrics and leave mediocrity far behind in your past. Click that link right now in the description below and apply for your call immediately. Do it now.